Well, good morning. I'm Dr. Russ, and you caught me here just coming in off a hunt here in my backyard between the trees and the fields and the wetlands. We get all kinds of critters around here. I was kind of surprised at getting this possum this morning. Normally you get them at night using flashlights and air guns, shotguns, but this morning he was in broad daylight. Before I get into all of my catch, let me just welcome you here to Southeast Michigan and another opportunity to become air gun sharp. This morning was better than normal. I got a couple of red squirrels, actually 3 red squirrels, but I also got one of these small black ones. Man, they're frisky and they're fast. You got to be good to get a black one. And of course, this possum here during the dead time, during the morning instead of night. Normally you get these with a flashlight at night, along with some raccoons. It took me a while with air guns to get used to doing headshots. And you certainly want a headshot with powder guns going after deer and large boar, etc., with the idea that you might mount them. You want to stay away from the head and the chest, the high neck, but it's those organs in the chest from the side are the best shots that way. But if you don't shoot these small critters in the head, they can crawl into a hole, they can go up a tree, and you'll just never retrieve them. And my dad taught me, you got to eat what you shoot. So I needed to recover these. Possums are an interesting animal. They're interesting in that they're America's only marsupial. That's a big word, but it means that they have a pouch on the front, and that's where they raise the young. At least the females do. This guy has no pouch, and he has no feeding stations on the underside, so we know he's a male. But an interesting thing is that all the species, except marsupials, they raise the pups in their womb. But with marsupials, half of the raising, developing is done in the womb, and half is done in the pouch. It's over a month or so before they start crawling out of the pouch, and then you've got a real babysitting job if you're a mother marsupial. This tail is interesting. Ugly, but interesting. The female uses it to gather her pups. Both male and female use it to help get up a tree. And females either also grab leaves and twigs and take it in for nest building. They can live in the ground, they can live up in trees. But that's not the real interesting story about this tail. This tail is desired in certain South American civilizations, or uncivilized nations, as a sex aphrodisiac. In other words, they're Viagra. We find this with animals for some reason. I know the Orient loves bear parts, and they love the velvet on elk, and South America, the tail. I don't know how these myths got started. I know of no medical knowledge that says they help with your sex life. Many of us are hoping that Viagra will help stop a lot of the wasteful killing of these animals around the world to feed these various industries. Another interesting thing about these animals is that the possum has a 5-fingered hand with a thumb and fingers. So when you're tracking them on the ground, you'll know, unlike most other animals, they've got 5 versus 4. This morning, my hunt included this Avenger. Now, we're not testing this today. I used it for hunting today, and it's a good hunting. But this is a very special gun because the Avenger is another one of these $299 entry-level PCP guns. In fact, this PCP air cartridge goes all the way out to the end. I just put a couple of pinstripes here to denote the barrel. And I'm using a CP scope, which is a Crossman scope on this. But I find that this, along with that Humerex Gauntlet make excellent $299 entry-level guns. Primarily, not because they're $299, though that helps any pocketbook, but both of those guns, this one and the Humorex, have regulators in them, and that regulates a precision amount of air that goes down the barrel. What that means is that your grouping has a chance to be this big instead of this big. So we'll get into that in another video coming up. In fact, we'll probably test the two Gauntlet against the Avenger. So you might want to give us a thumbs up, and you might want to subscribe if you want to be the first one on your block with those videos. You know, possums have this reputation for playing dead. They don't play dead. What happens is, if I was to play dead, that's a voluntary action. I think, well, I'll lay on the ground and play like I'm dead. Possums don't do that. It's actually an involuntary action on their part. They actually faint from the fear. Fear grips them, and they faint. They don't play dead. Their eyes close as if they're dead. They faint with their teeth showing. And they've got 50 interesting sizer-type teeth. They also foam at the mouth in this coma-like faint. That's why they get the reputation for rabies. I'll talk about that in a second. But they faint, and they could be out for 15 seconds. It could be 15 minutes. And animals and you can pick them up and carry them around, and they don't do it. But once those ears start to flicker, get ready, they're coming out of it. And you may find out more about those 50 teeth than you wanted to. Also, during this faint stage, I should tell you, they have a stink. Oh my goodness, what a stink. In fact, I know of 3 animals that really have horrible stinks. We all know about the skunk. The possum has a stink, particularly during these faints. And the third one would be fox. And it's such a beautiful animal. I had a baby fox. I paid $100 for it. And wanted to make it into a nice little pet. The stink was horrible. So, 3 animals with stinks. Allow me to finish the story about rabies. I even had a viewer, tell me that possums don't catch rabies. And 99 times out of 100, they do not. But they can catch rabies. They're not immune to rabies. But the reason they have such few amounts of rabies, again, it's that foaming when they play dead, but it gives them that rabies myth. But the reason that they don't get rabies very, very often is their body temperature, a little bit like a cold reptile. And rabies need a hot body to go ahead and develop itself into what you and I know as rabies. They're cold-blooded, so that's why they don't get a lot of rabies. They are, though, carnivorous. They eat meat, and they eat some vegetables too. But they love snakes, and they love rattlesnakes. They're a little bit like a mongoose in that they are immune, not to rabies, but they're immune to a rattlesnake poison. So even when a rattlesnake bites them in defense, it doesn't affect these possums. They're fine with it. But they'll chase those snakes into holes and whatever and eat them, and they're not afraid of them at all. You know, we hear about bears hibernating. And certainly in the north, like Michigan, a lot of animals hibernate. A bear might hibernate the longest. Possums hibernate the shortest. Not more than about 2 months. They get hungry. They come out of their sleep and they get out and they want to eat. Another thing that's interesting about them is some people like to get the grease off them. They're kind of greasy, so is a raccoon, by the way. And they use that grease for a chest rub when you have a cold. I don't know of any medical reason to do it, but some people believed it. And to eat them, well, they taste a little bit like pork or pig, if you will. America used to have quite an appetite for possums. In fact, President Taft was the last president in history where there's a recorded writings that he went to a possum dinner. Okay, it's time for that cooking segment. Let's see, we got a possum, got a red squirrel, a black squirrel, another couple of red squirrels, 4 squirrels, and wait a minute. What's this gray squirrel doing here?
He's mine.
Yours? Dr. Paula, what are you doing shooting squirrels this morning?
He was stealing my bird seed out of my bird feeders.
Well, it's more important that your birds get their breakfast rather than this squirrel.
Yep.
And what are you using to take a squirrel these days?
I have the Humorex 22.
Great gun, by the way. It has regulator on it. And what's the reason you like it so much?
Because it's nice and quiet and they don't hear you coming.
Quiet and regulated. Excellent. Well, I promised you a little knowledge on cooking, not just squirrels and possum, but any wild game critters as far as I'm concerned. You don't necessarily need a meat cleaver, though I use one, and I like to take off the legs, the head, the tail, and then I just have that basic body. And then these knives will open up. You're going to find that the smaller the knife, probably the better. You know, I have a knife business on the side. I probably spend about 2 minutes a month on it, but these are these new ceramic blades. And you know, ceramics, that same ceramic they put on the outside of that space shuttle, they're hard. Once they get an edge on them, it's hard with any kind of stone to get a better edge, but they're brittle. You want to be very careful about dropping them, because in this case it took the tip right off. But in terms of a hard blade, boy, they've got it. You roll the parts and get them wet, roll them in flour, and then pan fry them like this, flipping them over. And boy, are they delicious. Now, let me close by just saying this. If you thought this video was any help in helping you be more air gun sharp, it doesn't take much to give us a thumbs up. And if you want to make sure you're first in line and get those next videos quickly, videos in which we actually test the Avenger, probably going to have a Avenger versus Gauntlet video too. 2 excellent guns, $299. By the way, I buy all of my own guns. I buy all of my own scopes and everything. So when you get information from us, it's neutral information, I'd like to tell you. But if you'd like to be the first to get those next videos, you need to subscribe. Till then, stay air gun sharp.